most of you probably know or even used PayPal before, but we'd like to start by sharing some numbers to give you a better sense of the size of PayPal and the data that we deal with. So we process about $1.36 trillion every year by more than 400 million active accounts across the world. Now, during our 10-minute talk, about 340,000 transactions are about to take place. Now, since PayPal is a two-sided network, data-wise, we actually have double those numbers since we look at each event from both the seller and the consumer side. Now, before we move on, let us introduce ourselves. So my name is Cohen, and this is Myriam Hansel-Lesmy, and we're both data scientists at PayPal working on the seller risk domain. Now, since PayPal provide buyer protection in cases the seller does not fulfill their commitment to the buyer, we invest a lot of effort in identifying those risky sellers before they commit their bad activity. And specifically, our team is responsible for developing those solutions. So basically, if a seller doesn't send what it's promised to the buyer, PayPal need to give the buyer its money back. And we are here to prevent it and find the bad sellers. So today we're going to talk about how challenging existing practices helped us in improving our entire seller risk ecosystem in PayPal. So we're going to describe the risk ecosystem and the challenges that we have, talk about our proposed solution, and share some of our insights and what is next for us. So let's start. So large enterprises need to deal with many outlier detection problems, especially in the fintech world. Now, this can include things like detecting compliance or regulatory issues like anti-money laundering or identity theft. It can also include things like cyber attacks by ransomware or insider threats. And another common use case is risk management, which happens to be our field. Now, finding these needles in a high-stakes requires a very complex system that will pinpoint the anomalies while giving us a smooth experience for the good seller. So let's talk about how that looks like in our case. So the seller risk ecosystem is extremely complex and sophisticated, but for the 10 minutes that we have, we'll try to really simplify it. So it can be split into 3 layers. The first is strategy, which is defined by the business units according to the business goals. And the strategy includes metrics for balancing between loss prevention and good seller experience. Now, the second layer is composed by dozens of machine learning models. So this is us and what we do. And the models are built to identify different types of customers or behaviors in order to meet the goals of the defined strategy. And the last layer is the rules layer. So the rules combine the different models in order to execute the business needs, limit bad sellers, and provide the best possible experience for our customers. Now, an example for a rule can be if a seller got really high score in model X and model Y and meets several conditions, we might ask him to provide us more information about itself and its business. Now, the rule layer is extremely complex and composed of thousands of rules built on top of each other over the years. And why do we even need so many rules? So the variance in our population is huge and leads to different behaviors in every sub-pop. So for example, the majority of the activity is in North America, but we also have plenty of sellers in other parts of the world like China or Europe, and each region has its own characteristics. A lot of the activity is in the fashion industry, which behave really differently from groceries or electronics. And these are just a few examples for the diversity in our population, leading to different behaviors that are answered by different rules. And actually, this is even much more complex than that. Each seller can be a combination of different segments, like the ones we mentioned, and each rule needs, and the rules are built to catch each of the different combinations. And as a result, we get a very complex rule ecosystem. Now, this situation is common in many large companies when managing this kind of complex strategy. And when you have thousands of rules and dozens of AI models, it may result in a lack of agility, long time to market, and high maintenance cost. And this is why we decided to propose an alternative for this entire ecosystem that we've just described with one unique model. And I will pass the torch to Myriam to continue.
Thanks, Maya. So this is how a typical project time looks like, and we are all familiar with this. So usually so it's on a very, very high level, yeah? So usually we have the definition phase where we define the KPIs and the requirements. And then we have the research where we are doing some research on the data and on the domain just to better understand it. And then we do some modeling and we go to production. But here, in this project, due to the unique nature of this project, we devoted a great amount of time to the definition phase. So it's important to understand that this is the first time such a project was conducted at PayPal, in the sense that we had to redefine an entire ecosystem, and we had to, and impacted the way many, many teams work. So we had to change our mindset to approach the problem with critical and creative thinking, meaning to get to the root of the problem and to refine as good as possible in the best way the needs of our users. So we didn't want them to tell us that they need a faster host, but rather that they want to go from point A to point B so that we can build them a car. So to do so, we had many long sessions with our partner to answer some philosophical questions, such as how can we define our users? How should we interact with them? And when should we interact with them? So after a lot of work, hard work with our partners, we got to the final definition and we could start working on the modeling part. So here we had many technical challenges. Some of them are common to other domains like health or cybersecurity, but I will mention only 3 of them. The first one being with imbalanced data. So this is a common challenge when you work in the risk domain because most of your users are good users. But here, the challenge was extreme. And it got even more extreme since we had to work on a multi-class problem. The last challenge I'd like to mention is the size of the data. So as Maya mentioned at the beginning of this talk, PayPal has millions of accounts and billions of transactions. And each account has thousands of variables, which are updated with each transaction. So I won't get into the other challenges or how we solve them, although we had some very nice and innovative solutions here, and you can ask us about this afterward. Because, okay, we didn't apply to the 20-minute talk, but after a lot of hard work and some unique approaches and also a bit of luck, we managed to overcome all of them, and we ended up with a successful solution, which today is one of the flagship models of PayPal for seller risk. So our model can help replace the entire risk ecosystem and can even improve the performance by double digits. And here you see our Pacman model eating all the rules that Maya showed you at the beginning. And inspired by our success, other teams like PayPal are trying to adopt this approach to their own domain. And in our team, we are already working on the next version of the model, which will improve the performance even more. So to summarize, if there is one thing we would like you to check from our session, is to never be afraid to challenge the status quo, no matter how deeply rooted it is and no matter what is the size of your company. In the end, it can really improve your work, and by just accurately defining your problem, you may so if you just define your needs properly, it may be already bring you 50% closer to the solution. So we shared an example from our domain, but of course this approach can be applied and replicated to any other. And thank you. We hope you enjoyed our talk.